Ever heard the one about the time that America's most famous journalist disappeared when he went to go ride off and fight with Pancho Villa in Mexico? In 1913, at the tender age of 71, one of America's most famous journalists, Ambrose Bierce, announced that he was going to follow the forces of Pancho Villa during the Mexican Revolution. He got on a horse, he rode to Mexico, and he was never seen again. So begins one of the great mysteries in American literary history. And if you don't know who Ambrose Bierce is, let's just say that he is one of the most influential journalists and writers in America at the time. He worked at the San Francisco Examiner alongside the likes of Mark Twain and Jack London. So really influential writer in a number of genres. But for now, let's just go ahead and look at the several possible explanations about what happened to Ambrose Bierce after he rode off into Mexico in 1913. Explanation number one. Bierce was killed at the Battle of Ojinaga. His final correspondence with his secretary, Bierce announced that he was going off to follow Pancho Villa to the Battle of Ojinaga. The biographer of Pancho Villa writes that Bierce had been awarded a rifle for helping support Villa during his fight at the Battle of Tierra Blanca, and that he was maybe following Pancho Villa around and even joining his forces. So he would have been killed at this battle. That's one possible explanation. In another account, Bierce was not killed in Ojinaga, but only wounded, and had helped a group of federales, Mexican troops, escape the breached fort, and he was carried across the river mumbling and moaning in his final minutes as he was pushed across the Rio Grande, trying to help the federales escape from the revolutionary forces to get to the American side. In this version, he was carried by railroad up to Marfa, Texas, where he died and buried in an unmarked grave. In yet another telling, Bierce was suspected by federal troops of being a spy for Pancho Villa and was executed in the mining town of Sierra Mojada, Mexico. In fact, a local historian from Sierra Mojada, Padre Jaime Leinert, was so confident in this story that he actually erected a monument to Ambrose Bierce in that mining town. And here's what the monument says. Very trustworthy witnesses suppose that here lie the remains of Ambrose Bierce, a famous American writer and journalist who, on suspicion of being a spy, was executed and buried at this place. A final and very plausible explanation is that Ambrose may have ridden off just because he didn't want to ever come back. He'd had a lot of family misfortune in the years leading up to this, and so he may have just gone off, possibly to take his own life and possibly just with no plans of return. Before I go, I wanted to shout out Forrest Gander, who wrote the 2014 article that sort of collated all the different stories about Ambrose Bierce's possible deaths. And I also wanted to shout out my 7th grade language arts teacher, Dr. Chuck Cole, who first had us read An Occurrence at Owl Creek Ridge back at King Lab Middle School way back in like 1994 or something. So shout out to Dr. Cole wherever you are, and until next time, Dr. Tim out.